twice about Russian meddling in our election, he vehemently denied it. And he gave the opinion, we negotiated a ceasefire in parts of Syria, which will save lives. Now it is time to move forward in working constructively with Russia! Exclamation point. Joining me now is Democratic Congressman Adam Schiff of California, the ranking member of the House Intelligence Committee. And Congressman, you just saw the president's tweet. He wants to move forward in the face of Putin's denial. What's your response?
Well, my response is, how can we really believe that the president pressed Putin hard when only the day before he was denying whether we really knew Russia was responsible? What kind of a tough negotiator, and this is the way the president likes to portray himself, goes into a negotiation betraying his own position the day before, calling into question the probity of his own intelligence agencies? That just doesn't make any sense. And then to say, okay, it's been resolved, now we can move on. I don't think we can move on. I don't think we can expect the Russians to be any kind of a credible partner in some cybersecurity unit. I think that would be dangerously naive for this country. If that's our best election defense, we might as well just mail our ballot boxes to Moscow. I don't think that's an answer at all.
I want to talk about cybersecurity in a minute, but are you saying that the president is not telling the truth about what happened in that private meeting?
I'm saying that as much as I like Nikki Haley, she wasn't in the room any more than I was, and it just strains credulity to think that the president took such a very different position privately with Vladimir Putin than he took publicly the day before. Why on earth would you do that? Why would you go into that negotiation and so undermine your own position? We're, I guess, meant to believe that he's much stronger in private than he's willing to be publicly, but why does that make any rational sense? On the contrary, if he was really determined to press Putin, he would have gone into that meeting and said unequivocally, this is what Russia did. Even by an account from the Secretary of State, apparently the president asked Putin whether he did it. He didn't go in there and confront him and say, as Nikki Haley would suggest, and we would all love to believe, we know you did this, you have to stop. It's just really hard to imagine given what he said only hours earlier.
You mentioned cybersecurity. I want to put up what the president tweeted again this morning about this. He said, Putin and I discussed forming an impenetrable cybersecurity unit so that election hacking and many other negative things will be guarded. What do you make of that?
Well, I think we have to remember the president just went into a meeting with a man who ordered hacking of our democratic institutions. So Putin wasn't a tangential player here. He wasn't just a disinterested party. He was the one who ordered this orchestrated effort to interfere in our democracy and do so through cyber means. And to now suggest or believe that we can count on Mr. Putin or his government to be a constructive player ignores not only what he did in our election, but what he's doing currently in German elections, what he did in French elections, what he's doing in other parts of the world. The Russians want to take down liberal democracy. That is what they're about right now. We're in a new ideological struggle. And I think to gloss over that, to ignore that, to try to bury that with the idea that we can work in a cybersecurity group is a dangerously naive view to take of Russian intentions and how much we can count on them. Look, I think something constructive did come out of this meeting. It was the ceasefire in Syria, so it wasn't a total loss. But on the issue of hacking, it was a loss for the country because the president went into that discussion having really undermined our own position.
The president also tweeted again about the DNC server. Here's what he said again this morning. Questions were asked about why the CIA and FBI had to ask the DNC 13 times for their server and were rejected, still don't have it. Can you clear this up, Congressman? Did the DNC actually refuse to turn over its server to the FBI during the 2016 election when they were hacked?
First of all, Dana, I'm not sure what the president is saying there. Is he saying that questions were asked at the G20 about the DNC server? I find that hard to believe. But on the merits of it, this is one of the issues that we're looking into. Was there a request by the FBI for the DNC server? Was there reluctance by the DNC to give it over? The only thing that we have seen publicly so far, and again, we still need to probe beyond this, is Director Comey's testimony that what they got was essentially the blueprint of the server from a very credible cybersecurity firm that satisfied the FBI's needs. So I still want to test that testimony, but this is something we will get to the bottom of. But again, it doesn't excuse what the Russians did. You don't blame the victim for the hack, no matter what kind of security precautions the DNC took or what they did afterwards. This was still an orchestrated effort by an adversary of the United States.
Congressman, I want to ask about something the New York Times is reporting this morning, that Donald Trump Jr., Paul Manafort, and Jared Kushner met at Trump Tower last June, again during the campaign, with a lawyer who is a high-profile Russian national. The president's eldest son told the newspaper that the meeting was primarily about an adoption program. Does this story raise questions for you?
It certainly raises questions for a variety of reasons. Of course, the president's son had denied having any kind of meetings like this. They claim that this meeting had nothing to do with the campaign, and yet the Trump campaign manager is invited to come to the meeting. And there's no reason for this Russian government advocate to be meeting with Paul Manafort or with Mr. Kushner or with the president's son if it wasn't about the campaign and Russia policy. Obviously, they were trying to influence one of the candidates, the leading candidate at that time, on the Republican ticket. So what we've heard thus far doesn't make much sense. What we just heard from the spokesman for the president's lawyer, suggesting somehow that this was contrived, maybe by Hillary Clinton, also doesn't make sense. So yes, we need to get to the bottom of it.
And does getting to the bottom of it mean potentially calling Donald Trump Jr. before your committee, which is investigating this?
You know, I think we're going to want to question everyone that was at that meeting about what was discussed. You know, by trying to frame it as about adoptions, it ignores what it sounds like the meeting may have really been about, and that is the Magnitsky Act, which is legislation, very powerful sanctions legislation that goes against Russian human rights abusers. So if this was an effort to do away with that sanctions policy, that is obviously very significant. If they're talking to the president's team, the then candidate Trump's team, that contradicts, of course, what the president and his people have said about whether they were meeting with any representatives of the Russian government.
Congressman Adam Schiff, thank you so much for joining me this morning.
Thanks, Dana.
Something has to be done. President Trump says North Korea's nuclear ambitions must be stopped, but what would a preemptive strike really look like? Obama's Secretary of Defense will be here to game it out right after the break. Stay with us.